Stack it up, don't fumble. You just gotta stay humble. You ain't flip it till you make it double. Baby girl, I ain't got time to cuddle. I ain't lying to you, I just had none. They ain't give it, had to take some. I can tell you ain't all of a sudden. What the fuck, thought we came much struggle. But I know I gotta stand for some. I cannot settle for none. If you with me, then I love you. If you ain't, then it's fuck. I can't go out like a buster. Come from a family full of hustlers. I can't go out like a buster.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Familyfullofhustlers podcast. I am your host, Eric M. And today I want to kind of touch on the whole healing theme that we've been going over this week. If you didn't listen to the first two episodes, we talked about healing as a wealth strategy, and healing is the preparation, not the destination. So definitely check out those two if you didn't, to get more clarity as to what the next step is. Right. So this episode is your compass to self-discovery. I want to go over how exactly do you build after you've gone through this healing journey, after you've gone through all of those things. How exactly do you go about moving on into the world and building something that is longevity, that is valuable, that is powerful, and that you believe in? So the first thing is you have to really get clarity, right? A lot of times we don't think about the fact that we can't get to where we are because we aren't clear. And the reason we aren't clear is because there's so much stuff that's kind of fogging our minds that we have a hard time filtering through. And because of that, we end up on a spinning wheel and we're not growing in our businesses. All of these things affect your net income. All of these things affect your time freedom. All of these things affect all of that. Right? So first off, let's just, back up a little. All right. Like I said before, most people jump from trauma to entrepreneurship. That's just what we do. Right. And that's how we end up creating brands that are out of alignment with our true values. And the thing about it is, I truly believe if you were to ask most people who, they call themselves entrepreneurs or business owners or whatever, if you ask them what their true values were, they wouldn't be able to define them, right? Most of the time, they probably going to say something about their family, and they're going to say something about generational wealth, maybe, everybody loves those words, and I don't know, financial freedom, something like that. That's what most people are going to say. But see, those things are not your core values, right? Those are not core values. And I think that's what has a lot of people spinning wheels, like I said, and extremely unhappy in their businesses, in their lives, and their brands and everything, is because we are building around the gold, which is the financial freedom, the generational wealth, quote unquote, or external things, material things, vanity metrics, right? We're not building off of a true core value, and because of that, we are having a hard time actually being able to enjoy the journey, right? So, like, I've had a person ask me recently, one of my friends, his name is Damon. He's like, man, every time I talk to you, you moving, you grinding, you working, you doing this, right? And I told him, I was like, it's because I enjoy it. Like, I don't really have a level of fatigue. I can do this all damn day, right? And the reason I can is because I went through a period of self-discovery to where I am happy while I'm hustling. And that right there puts you so much further ahead than the average person, you know. So like to elaborate on that, right? There's a study that says that most people who work a 9 to 5 hate their jobs. I forgot the number, but it's like it's a crazy number, right? So most people who clock in and out of their jobs, they actually hate them. And if they have like kids or loans or whatever, the only reason they are there is because they have external factors that keep them there, right? I believe the same for entrepreneurs and business owners. I don't have a way to prove it necessarily, but I genuinely feel that most entrepreneurs, business owners are not genuinely happy in their businesses, and they're solely only doing them either because they already started and they don't know how to stop, right? They don't they're making money from it, so they just feel like that's justification, you know. And so many other reasons, you know. It's also apparent that on that other side of the spectrum, that people who run businesses are more likely to suffer from some type of mental health issue, rather that be depression, anxiety, or whatever. That number is way too high as well, right? So when you take a step back and you look at those two truths, you know, you got people working 9 to 5, they fucking hate their jobs. Then you have people who are business owners, entrepreneurs, they're burnt out all the time, and they are going through depression, anxiety through massive rates. What does that tell you? Right? That there is a middle ground in those two, right? And I believe it's because everybody is either doing what society told them to do, which is people who are working 9 to 5s that they don't fucking like or enjoy, or they are doing things based off of vanity metrics. Entrepreneurs, business owners who are doing stuff for following, for brand recognition, for the dollars, whatever, right? They're doing it for the vanity more than they're doing it for their core values, right? If you don't believe me, take the time to scroll on Instagram, right? Take the time to scroll on Instagram. 30 minutes. I'm telling you, most of the stuff that we see is people doing what? They are just saying any and everything to get engagement, clickbait, attention. Everybody's starving to be viral, right? That is a form of them seeking vanity metrics. Doesn't align with their values, or they probably don't even know what their values are, but they know that this is what gets people going, right? This is what social media is doing to us as well. If you think about it, social media has programmed our minds to be what? Followers, right? Everybody's worried about followers. Then you look on the algorithm, right? It's trends, right? What's the latest trend? Trending sounds, trending this, trending that, right? So what that causes with entrepreneurship is people are jumping into businesses based off of what they can do now. What's everybody doing now? What's this new thing now? What's this, right? People are not starting businesses because of their core values. And that is a big thing when you're talking about actually building a company, right? Now, I'm not saying that you can't make money doing something that you don't really care about, right? Because you can. I have before as well. I'm not exempt from this. But what I will say is that if you think you'll make more money and be more successful doing shit that you don't even care about for real, if you think you'll make more money doing that than you would doing something that you actually care about, you are lost. I'm telling you. Because think about scalability, right? Or just culture inside of your company. If you don't actually care about what you're doing and you're solely doing it for vanity, what do you think the people who you hire is going to do? What do you think your partners are going to do? Right? We are supposed to be leaders, Now, again, most people who are in business, we're not even thinking that big in terms of company infrastructure and having employees, having a team, having all of that. We're not even thinking that far for the most part. Most people are just simply just trying to get by, right? And then you end up hopping from trauma to trauma, depression to depression, anxiety to anxiety. You end up hopping from anxiety from a 9-to-5 to anxiety and entrepreneurship. You're still going through the same stressors. You know what I'm saying? So, and that is why, right? So we're not thinking big enough to think about the big picture of what this means. So you have to take a step back to say, all right, what exactly do I believe in? Right? Not the fucking hashtag talk. I don't want to hear no financial freedom. I don't want to hear generational wealth. I don't want to hear all the bullshit. I don't want to hear I want to make $100,000 a month. That's not a core value, right? What exactly do you believe in, right? And it's like the fact that I truly don't believe that most people will be able to answer that question is crazy to me. There's a book by, what is his name? It's Conscious Capitalism. I definitely recommend the book. It's the guy who founded, I think it was Whole Foods. And he talks about, why he launched it and, and how big the company has gotten and the journey throughout it. And how he structured his company, right? Think about Whole Foods. Whole Foods offers like healthier alternatives versus bigger companies or other companies that are just as big, that just offer any and everything just to, I guess, hit profit or whatever, right? Whole Foods took a different route and offers healthier alternatives. Still a huge company and they are still wildly successful, right? I definitely recommend reading that book. I don't want to spend the time to go through all of the chapters and nothing like that, but I will say that was one of the things I learned in that book was just that the reason that company is so big is because the founders cared so much about health, right? And that company culture poured in so much that when the company went under, they had the community help rebuild the store. They helped rebuild it. They had investors that just poured into them just because they believed so much in what they were doing. I don't believe that you can build a big company like that in that same way if you are operating in a space of I'm just doing shit for money. I'm just doing it for vanity, right? I'm just doing it for followers. I'm doing it for recognition. No, right? I personally don't believe you can build a company like that if that is what the goal is, right? So going back to the self-discovery, how exactly do you do it? How do you define what your core values are, and how do you build something that's around that? So I personally feel that you have to ask yourself the right questions to get the right answers. This is just my belief in anything, you know. So I think the first step is identifying what your core wounds were, and redefine them as I would say redefine them into like core truths, right? So your core wound, an example would be, what did you lie? What did the world lie to you about before, about yourself, right? Maybe you were told you being greedy, you too ambitious, you know what I mean? Or maybe you were told that you're too fucking lazy, or that you're this or you're that. What did the world lie to you about, right? Redefine that into a truth. You know, I've had people tell me all I care about is business. I've had people say that to me, right? When in reality, I actually don't care that much about. I actually don't care that much about business. I just know that business creates freedom, and freedom is an aspect of life that I want. So I use business as my vehicle to that. You see the difference? The next thing I think is like an environment check, where you have to understand where you come from doesn't define you. It can help shape you. So identify like what parts of your environment gave you fuel, and what parts are you unlearning. You know, that is pivotal. That is very important to help you create a foundation. You know, a lot of times we come from environments where there's a lot going on. There is a lot of trauma, a lot of chaos, a lot of misunderstanding. Some of us come from poverty. Some of us come from good homes, whatever. Right? We all come from different places, but one thing I think that we all would be able to agree on is that we all have things that we have to unlearn, and then we all have things that, because of our environment, gave us fuel. We need to identify those, so that way we can create a strong foundation as to what we believe in. All right. So for me, I guess I'll just give a little personal background. I grew up where my mom always worked. I mean, she still works. But I grew up where my mom had me at 15 years old. So obviously life was a lot. Life was a lot growing up. There were things that my mom just couldn't teach me, and I had to learn on my own. There were things that I had to unlearn from the type of environment that I grew up in. Right, a lot of stuff that I didn't unlearn until my early 20s. Right, so, but those things helped me create a foundation for what I want and what I don't want. Right, for what I care about and what I don't care about. That is extremely powerful, and I'm gonna circle back to this as we go into the next part of creating that foundation of your compass. Right, so the next thing would be, what do you love creating that nobody had to tell you to do? So this is the part that hurts a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business owners. Is we let school tell us what we could and couldn't be, or what we should and shouldn't do. Right? We hop in the world and then we start trying to start businesses and all that, and we let social media, we let influencers, we let all the extra shit make us forget as well. So now we in a space where that inner child is gone, right? You wonder why the fuck you tired, why you can't seem to get over the hump, why you can't scale, why you can't do these things that you have all these aspirations of doing. A lot of times, I believe it's because your inner child has been depleted, and you don't enjoy anything, right? So you have to figure out, what do you love creating that nobody had to tell you to do? You know, like I said, when you were a kid, you would just make music, you would just draw, you would just do whatever. And when you got older, the world told you that wasn't valuable, right? And that's just an small example. That's mostly for me. Like when I was a kid, I was an artist. That was my thing. Then as I got older, I felt like that being an artist wasn't a way for me to make money and to be successful and to be sustainable and all these different things. So I ended up doing a bunch of other shit, right? And I mean, it still landed me in a pretty good position. I mean, it's cool, but a part of me felt like, yeah, I'm kind of low-key dying inside, dog. Like I don't really have that creative freedom, or that, you know, that's still in me, right? So that made me really feel like I'm just really just a zombie out here. You know, I got some money, but I'm kind of a zombie, right? So you need to figure out, what do you love creating that nobody else has to tell you to do? Like I said, before hustle culture, before school, before survival mode, what did you do naturally, right? Like I said, for me, podcasting comes natural because I'm an introvert. It helps me get my thoughts out. The other thing is, like, I'm a very creative person. I did graphic design for years. I should draw. I you know, anything that you guys see in graphic wise, I made it just because it's fun to me, right? So that's just me, you know. So I've been able to take my creative mind and put it into my businesses, and I'm grateful for that. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without going through this period of self-discovery, right? So the next thing you need to do is you need to go through an energy audit. Like, what exactly energizes you and what drains you, right? If you got to force yourself to get up at 4:30 in the morning and it's draining you, and then you're frustrated all damn day because you didn't get enough sleep, and now you can't perform, you can't be productive, you probably should adjust that, right? If you are doing things, again, that don't align with what you like or what you love, it's gonna drain you, and thus gonna make you less productive. And less productive means less income. Less income means less resources. Less resources means less whatever else you want, however deep you want to go. All right. So, like, for me, I'm not really into social media like that. I'm not really into, like, influencer culture. I'm not into a lot of things that is popular, right? That shit drains me. You know, the idea of positioning myself in the public eye on that level just seems like a lot, right? And I know it'll drain me, and it has drained me at times. So for me personally, what does energize me is doing things behind the scenes, building systems, building my company, sitting on meetings with other developers or whatever. That type of shit energizes me. But the vanity of social media, worry about followers, engagement, algorithms, all that drains me. So what do you think I do? See what I mean? this is why I say we have to create this framework. And then the last one that I think is probably the most important is you have to discover values over vibes. Like, what the fuck do you stand on when it gets hard? When business is slow, when shit looking kind of dim, or shit just feels like it's just piling on. What do you stand on when shit gets hard? Not what looks good, but what actually governs how you treat people, how you lead, how you show up, no matter what. Right? And always remember that values aren't sexy, bro. Like they're not they're not sexy, but they scale though. You can scale values. Right? Everybody talks about scaling. Everybody wants to grow their business. Everybody wants to, but are you scaling your values? That is how you really scale a company. So this is all those components are just a framework for how you can determine your core values and build around that. This is how you'll have the ability to sustain yourself through business, through slow seasons, through hot seasons, all of the noise that you see. You will be able to keep pushing, keep moving, and still continue to grow through all that if you are building things that you just solely believe in. I hope you all really take the time to go through that. Like I said, if you need a journal, if you need to podcast, if you need to, whatever, blog, I don't know, right? But take your time to figure out who the fuck are you before you try to sell to somebody. That's very important. Why the fuck are you trying to sell to anybody, anything, if you don't even know who the fuck you are, right? I find this funny because one of the things I notice in real estate, or in anything that has anything to do with like high level sales, people be using the same damn pitches. They use the same approach. They use the same tone. They use the same everything, right? There's no separator between everybody. Everybody just kind of bunches in together, and they almost like they have the same personality damn near, right? And what's funny is when you are negotiating in business or you're trying to pitch somebody something, one of the first things that's coming through their mind is, who are you? That's one of the first things that's coming through their mind is, who the hell are you? Right? And what they're going to do? They probably go do some research on you, try to look you up a little bit, try to fill you out or something. Try to figure out who you are, I find it funny that people do that, like when they're trying to figure out if they want to spend money with you, they want to buy from you, if they want to do a deal with you. People do that, right? I find it crazy that we tend to not do that to ourselves first. We not taking the time to look at ourselves deeper, to really discover who we are. And that way, when somebody asks, who are you? You're not just saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent. You know what I'm saying? When somebody asks you who you are, you're not just saying a robotic, politically correct answer. You can't even really give the depths of who you are for real. Right? So before you let somebody audit you, to decide if they're going to buy from you, audit yourself before you decide to sell. I hope you all found this valuable. Again, I'm your host, Eric M. This was the Family Full of Hustlers podcast. Until next time, E.